Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our pre-conference podcast of Future Bridge. Today, we're going to talk about net zero food and beverage and energy efficiency and decarbonization in those processes. This pre-conference podcast is dedicated to net zero food and beverage forum. And today we have a great pleasure to introduce you to Drew Turner of Danfoss. Drew, thank you very much for joining the pre-conference podcast. Thank you for being here with us and sharing some insight. Welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Olga. I appreciate it.
Great. To start off, I have our first question here. Would you be able to share a bit about Danfoss and your role there?
Yeah. So Danfoss, we're a large, diverse company. We're in the division that I'm in is climate solutions, which is both heating and cooling, which is the subject of our podcast today. But uh, the company has a broad portfolio of solutions for all kinds of industries, including power solutions, including drives, including uh, various products and solutions. But the division that I'm in is climate solutions, which is all the products that we have for heating and cooling systems. And I am the director of global sector integration for Danfoss, focused on specifically those integrating energy systems in general, but especially the integration of heating and cooling systems.
I have a follow-up question here. Since you're working with integrated heating and cooling systems, would you be able to share what are the most important factors in evaluating opportunity in integrating the heating and cooling systems, for example, for food and beverage processes?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing is to find out if the facility that you're focused on, or the company or customer that you're focused on, has a combination of cooling loads and heating loads within the facility. That's first and foremost. The second thing that we really look for is whether or not those existing systems are hydronic systems and or steam on the high side. We can help out on steam on the high side, but especially hydronic systems. So hydronic cooling and hydronic heating creates the perfect opportunity for an integrated heating and cooling system. That's the first thing. And second, yeah, just to expand on it, the second thing is the coincident load of them. So most processes, or frequently with processes, you see a relatively consistent load, i.e. when you have a cooling load, there's generally the same production process in a later stage is there's a heating load as well. And frequently you'll have multiples of those. And so it's the coincident load that you look for as well. You can work with loads that aren't coincident, in other words, happening at the same time, but you have to build in storage to account for that disconnect. So it becomes a part of the system design as well, which just adds cost and capex. So it affects the payback of that the payback analysis of that.
Drew, what are the biggest challenges during the integration process, if you can highlight a couple?
Yeah, absolutely. There's multiple challenges. Some of the biggest ones that we've experienced are proximity of the loads. So that's another thing that we look for, that just highlighted on the challenge factor. If the cooling loads and the heating loads are not in close proximity to each other, then that just complicates the process of creating the solution for them. It's not that you can't do it, but it just becomes more complicated if you're on the other side of the facility. So that's one of the complications. The other complication is that balancing of the loads. If they're not completely coincident or at the same time, then building in that, determining the level of storage that's required, such that, for instance, the cooling provided to the process and recovering the heat to the separate part of the process, if they're not at the same time, that you build in the right level of storage so that you make sure that you cover both effectively. And other complications are making sure that you have the, kind of related to proximity, is the space to do it. It really depends on the design of the facility, how much it's built up over time. If you have a facility that has existed for 50 plus years, and that multiple pieces of equipment have been installed around it as well over that last 50 years, then it becomes much more complicated to make sure that you have the space. But we have the great news on that is that we also have the solutions to minimize the space required and to design the system such that you minimize the space required as well.
Got you. And here is the final question of our meeting today. Why is Danfoss focused on actually helping food and beverage companies to reach net zero?
Because of that diverse portfolio? It's a really good question, right? Kind of the discovery that we made and the reason that we created the sector integration, the organization that I'm in, is because we have such a broad and diverse portfolio of solutions, specifically in the climate solutions business. We came to the recognition that we have the opportunity and the expertise within the organization to design these systems, to help others design these systems, to show what is possible. Because as companies struggle with, these global multinationals or just local companies struggle with how they meet their ESG goals and net zero goals, the the biggest opportunity is that we see is with these integrated heating and cooling system, because it's a step change in terms of the efficiency of the plant when you do this. Because what you're talking about is, on heating, you're generally replacing equipment that operated with a COP or coefficient of performance of less than 1. And when you integrate a heating and cooling system, you're generally doing it with a heat pump. And with that heat pump, you're going to see performance more along the lines of 3 to 5 to, and sometimes 6 or 7 COP. So it's a magnitude change in the performance, which in turn means a magnitude opportunity in terms of decarbonization. So it's an enormous potential. And what the recognition that we came to was we have the full portfolio of solutions to design these systems, the heat exchangers, the valves, the hydronic system controls, the heat pump, not the heat pumps themselves, but the components that go into them. And we'll actually design that heat pump system. We'll work with OEM partners on providing the final solution of the heat pump itself. But that portfolio allows us to come in and do the feasibility study to show what is possible and to demonstrate what is possible, both in terms of operating cost based on that efficiency, but more importantly, that resulting decarbonization that comes from that same factor and eliminating gas usage to generate that heat.
Great. Thank you very much for your answer here. We are very excited to hear your presentation and insights, how Danfoss can help food and beverage industry in reaching net zero. And we're looking forward to meet you in person in Berlin this upcoming February 16th and 17th. Thank you, Drew, for being here with us.
Thank you for the opportunity, Olga. I'm really looking forward to it.